I love biographies and memoirs, and recently I've been reading the book Open by Andre Agassi, the tennis great, who is also just an absolute cultural icon when I was growing up. And in it, he tells a story about when he was going through a crisis in his tennis career. The racket that he was using just wasn't working for him. And so in that moment of crisis, he went in his white Corvette and he picked up his pastor. And he was in this Corvette with his pastor, and he was telling him about the crisis he was having with his racket. And the pastor responded to him by saying, you know what, Andre, you're going to endure a lot of crisis moments in your life. Some of them are going to be big, some of them are going to be small, and there's going to be everything in between. But this is a moment for you to practice for the next crisis in your life. Now, there's another person who endured a lot of crisis in the Bible, and his name was Elijah. And Elijah was going through so much crisis that he spent the whole day walking in the desert alone. And when he was alone in the desert, he finally finds this bush, and he sits under the bush and he tells God that he wants to die. And as he sits there, an angel shows up and says to him, hey, I have some food for you, so eat and then go to sleep. And Elijah does just that, and then next morning wakes up with a little bit of nourishment to go forward for the next day. And then God speaks to Elijah. And God says to Elijah, Elijah, why are you here? And when God says that, Elijah starts talking about the crisis that he's in. And God says again, Elijah, why are you here? And Elijah starts talking about the crisis again. And God says, Elijah, why are you here? And then God says, go. God gives Elijah a mission. God gives Elijah purpose and meaning for his life to impact the world. And we all have this too. But life is confusing, isn't it? I was on Facebook the other day, and if you go on any type of social media, you'll see a lot of different things, a lot of different emotions. You'll see things of celebration and then moments of devastation. You'll see things where people are sharing something that we might think is just kind of ridiculous. And then people sharing their most painful, intimate moments. But we have an opportunity, don't we? We can either be people who watch our lives pass us by, wondering if we should live other types of lives, talking about the difficulty and devastation and crisis that we are in, or we can listen to God saying to us, why are you here? And then hearing God say to us to go, to impact the world in the midst of whatever we might be going through. Have you ever been on a hike and you were almost to the summit, but then you felt like you couldn't get there? That happened to me one time. I was climbing this mountain in Guatemala, and the family that I was staying with knew I was going to climb, and they told me that whatever I did, I needed to bring 2 extra Snickers bars. And I decided to take their advice, and so I took, along with all the other snacks and water that I had, I took 2 extra Snickers bars. And sure enough, when I got close to the top, I felt like I couldn't make it. I felt like I couldn't go on. And I still had those Snickers bars. So I took their advice and I ate those Snicker bars, and then I made it to the top. And I got to see this beautiful landscape that was there for us waiting. And life is like this too. We think that we can't go on. We think that we can't get up the next morning in the midst of whatever crisis we are going through, but we have not gotten to the mountaintop yet. And our God is a God who has so much more in store for us wherever we find ourselves in our lives. And God is saying to us, why are you here? And we know the answer. It's because God also tells us to go. Amen.